right, so welcome to your mat, and very informal, you guys. So however you want to start is fine, but both of you know the hot sequence forward and back, right? So this class is designed to, first of all, tailor what you need from the actual sequence, whether that's coming back to more basic postures and proper alignment, foundation, versus what options there are, whether that means you want to advance your practice, or sometimes you've been practicing at an advanced state and now you want to bring it down to something that's more, perhaps more focused in what your body is doing in this very moment, this very day, right? So you guys can rise up and talk to me. And we can make this, so sometimes they start with pranayama, right? Pranayama meaning breath, right? So when we bring you guys up for the seated posture and we tell you to close your eyes and sit in Sukhasana, easy seat. So and you guys know the various different postures for seat, yeah? In Sanskrit, right? Sukhasana, this is half lotus, Ardha Padmasana. So I'll provide you too some of the Sanskrit words. So sometimes when we teachers are going around talking and we just, give you guys this foreign language, you're like, what is that, right? So Ardha Padmasana, and maybe you guys know full Padmasana, right? Very, very advanced practice. So, and it requires a lot of opening in the hips. But, we come to that space and we do breath, and usually we do that Dirgha breath, right? So 3-part breath. But you guys know it, so you tell me, what is it that you guys need?
I guess that's a good question. In the seat in the beginning, like I always kind of just default to the same thing. Should I what are my other options that benefit, or where should I? Is that reasonable just to come?
Oh yeah,
seat? Or
absolutely.
Is there, usually I'll be on a block right here, right? But is there somewhere that I should go from here that's not autopilot? You know what I mean? Is there a next step that I should be pursuing?
And Eric, in my opinion, you should come to a different seat each time you come to your practice. Maybe that's your challenge, right? How can I start off differently rather than always coming back to the same thing every time? So let's go over the seats, right?
Yeah.
So when somebody comes in and say, okay, find a comfortable space, right? And usually you've been to my class, you're like, and you told me,
yeah.
So I always say, I always encourage a seat, because that brings so much awareness rather than just hunkering down on your mat and lying down, right? So once class starts, now we're aware, right? So the different seats. So we always know Sukhasana is this, right? I hate this seat. I'll just tell you, because it crunches on my low back. When the knees are higher than the hips, we tend to default to this, right? It's because it puts all this pressure here. So the block underneath works well for that. Okay, so that's seat number 1. Siddhasana, which is bringing one shin in front of the other, right? So occasionally, I don't know if you know the ischial bones, which are at the base of the pelvis, right? Those divot bony parts that you sit up nice and tall on. And so now there's a lot of length in the spine, a little bit more accessible. Beautiful. So the Ardha Padmasana, which is bringing the top of one into the inguinal crease, right? So this is another one. And usually one side is more accessible. I find my right is much more accessible than my left, right? And then
I
of
get
course,
the pinching right here, so that's why I always just do it in front.
yes, and I do
Maybe
too.
later in the practice my hips might be open, but I always feel like it's
Right.
too meaty there.
And then the knees are floating in space
Yeah.
sometimes, right? So if that tends to happen, you always can bring a block underneath, right? So if you're kind of,
like that,
yeah, if you're kind of training your body to get into this posture with ease, you can start off with a block, and then as it gets nice, you just kind of scoosh that away, and then it's just barely on the tip of that knee, right? And then full Padmasana, right there, right?
That's not at the beginning.
And it's,
That's at the end.
it's one of those that you just, so, but that's, and then of course I personally need, a little support there, right? So those are the classic seats, and as Eric says, Vajrasana, right? So sitting on the heels with bent knees, right? This is it. Right? Whether you bring a block underneath the seat, two blocks, your choice, right? Whatever you find some comfort in. And ideally, it's more of a posture that you can start with and be nice, upright, and tall. Because some people are hunkered down like this, and when I say sit up nice and tall, right, as if the crown's reaching all the way up and the pelvis is rooting all the way down. Yeah, perfect. And then even when it comes, so the last time I taught this class, also there was a student who asked, well, what can I do while I'm waiting for class? So a lot of times those are, so if you have any questions about that, like, I always have really tight hamstrings, what can I do to loosen it before even class starts, right? So some of those options. Perfect. All right, so after that we go into Balasana, child's pose. Right? Many options for that too. So everybody gets into the classic knees wide, right? Big toes to touch, arms forward, right? So also embryo, bringing the knees together and then just bringing the arms at the sides. So you have more protraction versus retraction, right? Sometimes you can even separate the knees a little bit and thread the arms through. Right? And grab onto the heels or the tops of the feet. And sometimes you can just simply feel how that is, right?
You grab the heels from the outside.
Either one, right? So sometimes I grab onto the tops of the feet. So my palms are facing up, and I'll be grabbing for my toes. So something different.
And is your forehead down like my crown did?
Yep, and occasionally I'll bring a block underneath my forehead too. So feeling like, the extension of the neck isn't quite what I need really, really early. If I feel like I need that, sometimes I'll put my chin down. And you open up into the throat and elongate. And, Greethan and Eric, feel free to just, hey, I want to go right into the flows. Or, hey, I want to go right into, when we go into Bakasana, how can I make that different, right? Like we always do crow, 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 crow. I want to do side crow, or I want to do Ekapada Kundanyasana 1, or I want to do fallen angel, So you guys talk to me.
Okay.
What is fallen?
I was just gonna ask that. Now you're gonna show us what we got there.
All right, so let's say accessibility of advanced postures, right? So do you guys know side crow?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you start with side crow, so I'll do it on this side first. So when you go into side crow, as you plant the hands, right? So the gist of the posture, actually, the flank is off the right tricep, right?
Oh, yes.
So I cheat too. So when you go into side crow, right, usually the tricep is on the flank, right?
Yeah.
And you go this way, actually it's supposed to be off. Right? So when you go into fallen angel, I'll demonstrate it really quick. You have to plant the temple
Oh.
and reach the toes up.
That's amazing.
Straight up.
Straight up. So if you guys want to go into that, let's do a few preparatory postures, yeah?
Yeah.
Rather than, I went to the hot class this morning at 5:30, so I'm really
I
warm.
know.
I don't think you guys are.
No.
I was in bed this morning.
Right, no, I was awake. So why don't we go ahead and come to kneeling on, okay? So we'll just take a few lateral stretches first, okay? And what I want you guys to do to prepare for that is to just roll through the neck first, right? And when you do roll through the neck, make sure you bring both sides, same ear to same shoulder, and hold for a moment. So I'll let you guys just kind of bask into that a little bit. There's no sense really over stretching those muscles in the neck. Usually the sternocleidomastoid comes from posterior ear down to the clavicle, and the scalenes deep into the neck and to the sides, right? So I hate to conjure any injury or over lengthening those muscles. So roll through the neck. And then if you've gone on one direction, go ahead and switch it. Thanks. And when you guys feel like you've given enough length and focus into both sides, go ahead and find that neutral, and let's get into a lateral stretch, right? So, believe it or not, a lot of times I like lots flanking my sides, and this is mainly because I have short arms. Maybe not so much for you guys, but reach the arms all the way up. So I call this Urdhva Hastasana, right, meaning upward hands, and then left hand down, right arm reaches all the way up. Okay? So notice if you're hunkering that left shoulder into the left ear, can you really press away from the floor or from your block? So if you even want to tent up onto the fingertips, reach all the way up. And the right hip is reaching out to the right side, right? So you're lengthening this entire side, really open up into the rib cage. And if you guys haven't, I encourage you to practice with your eyes closed, yeah? There's nothing like an internal awareness and sometimes just leaving everybody else out of the world. Go ahead and bring it all the way up, and then switch. Right hand down, left arm goes. Just a nice, easy flow of breath. And go ahead and bring it all the way up, and then exhale, hands at earth. And then tabletop. Let's go into a little tabletop. We do that in the beginning, as you guys know. But if you'd like to warm up the spine a little bit more, you can do a few cat-cows, right? Go ahead and do that. And then also, as Ethan is probably gonna also notice, you might wanna roll through the wrists, right? Any arm balances, flexion, extension, rotation. So just mobilize the spine a little bit and warm that up. Rounds, you guys let me know you're ready. Find a neutral spine. Take your time. This is all about you guys. Something you don't even get to do, right, in the normal schedule. So,
Oh, this is fun.
and so coming to that neutral spine, go ahead and curl the toes under, right? And so we're going to activate into the core. So really press into the hands, start to lift the knees just above. Right? Hovering right over your mat. And then notice as you look down right between the space between the index fingers, can you feel the upper back start to really open up, right? So protraction. So if you notice the difference, protraction is curvature into the spine, and then retraction as the shoulder blades squeeze together into the midline. So almost that, yeah? So as you guys know in your crow, there's a lot of protraction, so just kind of getting into that space and making a lot of elongation, separation into the scapula. And just breathe, right? I know it starts to get a little hard, and those knees start to like to lift up a little bit more. So notice if you're doing that, can you go ahead and just come back to that place where they're just simply hovering. Quads are getting nice and shaky. And breathe for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Go ahead and release them down. Maybe a few cat-cows if you want. Just go ahead and come into a cobra or a sphinx if you feel like you want to counter that, right? Separate the feet, the width of the mat. You parallel the chin to the earth, shoulders right over the elbows, spread the fingers nice and wide, open up into the rectus. And I'll have you guys do that a few more times. So when you're ready, it doesn't have to be when I'm ready, but when you guys are ready, go back to that hovering table to really activate into the core, and I'll give you a different option to add into it. So when you press into the hands and you curl those toes under, and you start to lift up both knees and you hover and you open, this time bring that right knee towards the right elbow and you hold it. feet by spreading the toes nice and wide, point through the ball of that foot. And then go back to that hovering table, and then left knee towards that left elbow. Notice if that right knee is hiking all the way back up, can you lower it down just to a hover? Spread the left toes. One more round of breath. Exhale, bring it back down, tabletop. If you want to come back to that Sphinx, Cobra, Seal. Do you guys know Seal?
What is seal?
Yeah, remind me.
So if you come back to Sphinx, you know that Seal, you bring the fingertips all the way towards the front corners and you lift up. Right? So again, notice where you need to be in your body, because this is early in the practice, right? If you want a fuller variation, press into the pubic bone, bend the knees, bring the big toes to touch and reach them towards the occiput. You can lift up. So if you guys know when we do bow pose, right? Floor bow in the beginning of the practice, I feel like for me that posture is very, very early in the practice. I'm not really ready to bend my knees and
Yeah, that's how I feel during that one. I'm always like, oh.
because we used to put it in the end of the practice.
Yeah.
If you guys remember when we did locust, we did cobra, crocodile, and then you went into floor bow,
Yeah.
but now it's placed in the beginning. So as an option for you guys, if you wanted to do something that's a little bit less intense than floor bow, seal is always great. Okay? So whether you come here or here.
So it's my pelvic bone that's pushing and not my stomach, right? So like,
Correct. So if you feel
So I'm
like it's
using
your
my glutes.
stomach,
Yeah.
if you feel like it's in your stomach, press up more.
Oh.
Yeah?
And then glutes. And then, oh, that's tight.
Yeah. So remember, also listen to the quads, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to overstretch the quads. So energetically, the toes are reaching for the crown or the back of the head. Yeah. And then of course a higher upward facing dog, seal, and so those are options. Okay. All right. And if you need a little bit more flexion now that you did that, you can come back to that embryo pose, right? Just kind of resetting the spine after that full extension, that spinal extension. Nice. All right, so let's try your fallen angel. So I'm assuming, or side crow, or side crow. So if you have a side crow practice, go ahead and start moving into that.
Here's just a quick side question before we go to side crow. Like, in the part of the sequence where we're here,
Yeah.
I think at one point I realized, oh, this one's harder for me than I used to. And I think it's because I'm looking forward. And I think they always cue you to look down.
Yep.
Reasonable to look forward? Should I be looking down?
I think you should be
Challenging?
looking down.
Okay.
So that's called sunbird, right? So you did your cat-cow and then this extension, right? And then we started to do this,
Right.
So yes, look down,
Okay.
look down. Then when you catch the foot and you press into the right hand, left knee, then you look up because you're opening, it's a front body.
Okay.
But when you're extending, look down.
Okay. Okay.
So nice long posterior neck.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
All right, great. Back to side crow.
So if you have your side crow practice, you can just go ahead and simply move into that. Eric, I know you definitely do. So, and Greethan.
I work on it.
Nice, Eric. Beautiful. And Greethan, if you're, what I would suggest is both.
Okay.
A little bit more stable, right?
Okay,
Just
yep.
that one. Okay, so I can show you.
Yep. I'm
And
almost
I would
there.
actually say plant your temple.
Oh.
Really plant your temple on it.
As
So
part
if
of it,
you're
okay.
if you're using it as a catch, please don't, because I hate
No.
for you to fall
No,
and then
yeah.
right.
Well, I just learned to use it as a plant forward, so that's why I was gonna try it.
Yeah. So I've actually taken one block and then sometimes rested my toes on the other. So if you come into this, right,
Yeah.
and you just rest your head like a pillow,
Oh,
and then put your toes up.
Oh, yeah.
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 Or you can have one toe down, one toe up, and then eventually, without putting any pressure at all
On the head.
on the head.
Yeah.
No pressure at all on the head.
Yeah, because Devin just showed me, right, to practice crow. I used to be able to do it, and I haven't been lately. So, and then plant my
Mm-hmm.
head on that to
Yep.
practice.
And because we have 2 blocks and because we have 20 out there,
Yeah.
you can grab 8 if you
Yeah.
want.
Tap them all, and I just make them.
Right, you don't have to use 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it just feels
Yeah.
more stable when there's 2 side by sides.
Yeah.
And one kind of jitters off, especially in the highest setting.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, face planting.
Yeah.
right?
You
So-
all can do your That's fine.
Nice, Eric. Yeah. And then, of course, perfect. There you go. Reach your right toes up closer towards the ceiling. Right?
Okay.
So when you move into fallen angel, so you know, bringing that one stretch where we open up into the neck, left ear towards the left shoulder, without hiking up the other. Yeah. So if you notice how that feels as a musculature memory. So when you go into your side crow, right? Here we are in side crow, and then you just plant the temple, and then reach the toes up towards the sky and extend. And spread those toes, right? So now you're feeling as if your toes are reaching all the way up, and not all the way is hunkered down.
Okay, and then your other toes are also pointed up. but
Yes,
they're still-
all toes pointing up towards the sky. And so Greethan, when you're working on your crow, so Eric, you're welcome to play with that. So your crow pose, Bakasana,
Yeah.
regular crow, and starting up high, you're always, and then you can come down, you know, to the medium,
Yeah.
and then down, and then off. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So when you are using your blocks as getting into your crow, you can also have, and I'll just show you,
Yeah.
you can have this one back here.
Well, that's how I always used to do it,
Yeah.
but none in front of me. And Devin was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, well, "I don't know. This is what I was showing sometimes."
So this is like a running start
Yeah.
for a crow
Yeah,
pose.
yeah.
So when you bring your hands down, and then you can stay just like this, and you feel the lift of the abdomen, right? And then you can bring one toe,
Both those things.
and then the other toe, and then eventually both toes.
Yeah.
And know how you need to make adjustments with the stance of your blocks. And then maybe lift up your forehead. Nice, beautiful. Good, Eric. There you go, nice, beautiful, nice.
Look at you, babes.
And I'll, you know, and adjust on your mat so that your head's not like on the studio floor. So you can bring your hands all the way back here, and so your head plants there, and you're not planting your, you know, on the wood.
Now in the flow, during that crow time, is there enough time to do both side crows? It almost feels too rushed, or maybe
Correct.
if I
Yeah.
I would say no.
to just pick a side and do the side.
Yeah. Yeah. Pick a side, do a side.
Okay.
And then you, and that particular part of the sequence too, because do you have a tripod headstand
Yeah.
practice? So sometimes going into crow, transition into tripod as another transition and a little bit of a challenge. You know, when you start going into crow all the time, crow, then it becomes so methodic. Now what can be done differently? A one-legged crow, right? Ekapada Bakasana is another option.
And so maybe that is also another area of my practice where it's like coming to the seat in the beginning is doing different variations versus like, oh, I'm working towards, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. And let me know what variations you need, right? So for instance, rolling lunges, right? When we go into rolling lunges, we're so methodic with that, right? Everybody's doing the same thing, up and back, up and back. You can always do a winged dragon, right? You just open up the adductor, internal thigh, and then you move back and forth, right? Or you take that bind. If you feel like you're warm enough, you know, you can just bend into the left knee, reach it back.
So part of my struggle, I think, is like my hamstrings or like, you know, the backside like always feels super tight, right? So like my forward fold always feels
Like my forward.
right. It's just like never quite where I want to be. So what are like the stretches along here that I should be doing
Yeah.
in either that pose or other poses that I can be more mindful about loosening that up?
So
Maybe we can talk about that.
exactly the same question I got previously. So if you're wanting to do something, so you come 15 minutes before class and I want to start really opening up those hamstrings, reclined or seated, Janu Shirshasana, forehead to knee, right? And this is gentle. And I always encourage people to have a strap, right? So if you guys don't know where they are, they're in that closet, in that back room. There's a stack of them. You can just grab it, and then you can literally. And with these hamstring stretches, I always start off with a bent knee. I don't know if you ever noticed that. I don't know if we ever practiced together in the studio, but a lot of times, you know, people are just always starting out with this straight-legged, rigid leg and just folding over. But sometimes if you ease into it, so if you just wrap the fingers around and then a lot of times there's a disconnect between the breath and the pose, right? Some people just go right into it, but we call this a Langana breath. So especially in yin or restorative and you're winding down from a practice, if you breathe in and then sink it down and then stay and then you breathe in and work into it and hold, right? So either seated, you know, a lot of times you can just be here and just roll through the ankle, lengthen through the hamstring in this fashion, right? So I'm here at class and I just really want to start opening up my hamstrings, right? You know, Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold. So again, especially for me, because I have tight hamstrings as well. So starting off with both knees, wrapping a strap, right? Right? And then again, breathe and then sink, hunker down. Maybe you get to a spot where you don't need your strap. Right? And then with these forward folds, there's otherwise a disconnect of the abdomen, right? So we have something what's called an abdominal lock called Uddiyana Bandha, right? So a lot of times we just go into these folds and there's a release of the belly, when actually it should be nice and taut. You're pressing the belly button up and in into the spine, and then you can find more space.
I was always taught like you're getting karate chopped in the stomach, like
Almost, yeah.
like to fold over. That's why I always
Right.
think about
So
it.
breath,
Yeah.
Uddiyana Bandha. And even I notice it, I can get a little bit more space. And lengthen the spine, right? So instead of just convexing in and releasing down, can you feel like the crown is reaching towards the mirror?
I feel like what's reaching towards me.
Yeah.
No, like the top of your head, your crown.
The crown.
Okay.
In a forward fold is such as this. And then eventually, once there's a lot of space, then you can look forward. You know, like Devin has a very good
Yeah.
forward Janu Shirshasana where he can just
Yeah.
go like this and look forward because he has all this
Yeah.
ability to fold down and has nice lengthened hamstrings.
Okay, so that leads me to, I might need to type to this right now. Okay, so when we're doing this, can we jump ahead? Sorry. When we go to the standing posture, right?
Yes,
And then we make the basket. Sometimes I use a towel because I'm too sweaty,
yes,
right? And we
yes,
stand up tall,
yes.
and then we go forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I get kind of, I feel like I'm compressing myself too much. Can I use a strap or use a towel for that? Does that make
So-
sense? Or should I be able to
just let's grab some straps.
be able to do it?
And I'll show you how to do it.
Okay.
into it so that if you wanted to use the strap
Right.
to get into that posture, you can go here. So, getting into standing forehead to knee. So again, forehead to knee, Janu Shirshasana, either in the seated, reclined, supta Janu Shirshasana, and then standing up. Okay.
Yeah.
So we always start like this, right?
Right.
And I always say awareness. So standing toes are always facing forward, pressing into all four corners of that foot. So you should actually be able to lift up the toes if you notice,
Yeah.
rather than gripping the mat with the toes,
Yeah.
right? And so I always say a 90-degree angle, 90, 90, 90. So knee, so hip to knee, knee to ankle, ankle to toes. And you can use the, side mirrors for that. And then you have it here, inhale, take a breath in, and then exhale, you tuck round. Again, Uddiyana Bandha. So
Yeah. So I'm
press
trying to
it in.
suck my butt in while I do it. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can interlace. And usually this is where I tell people you can stay right here.
Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of times people stay here and then they just push the foot out versus you breathe in to press down,
Yeah, and I get
rise,
to here.
and then push out. So you can have a bent knee.
That's where I get stuck is the pushing out part.
So everybody wants to have that nice straight leg, but not necessarily, let's face it, with, tight hamstrings.
I can't even do
Yeah.
that straight leg on the ground, so what makes it?
I can do it on the
Right,
ground.
right,
Right.
right. It's like I already have problems sitting down,
Right.
lying down, doing this posture. Now you tell me to stand up.
Well, I feel like I should be able to do it because I am pretty flexible when I'm on the ground. Like I can get a good tuck around and stuff, but I feel like I can't. I don't know. It just feels different standing.
Right.
I'm not as flexible standing up.
Of course, and it's
Okay.
harder because you're balancing, right?
Right.
You're standing.
Oh, yeah.
So if you wanted to use your strap, and I always say start really close in
Okay.
because it's easier to release slack
Oh. Then
than
pull it
starting
up.
here and now we're
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so if you'd like to put your foot, the ball of your foot into the strap and get nice and close to the foot as if it's you have that basket, right?
Yeah.
So just imagine that you have the basket. Take a nice big breath in, press and rise, nice and tall first. So you're really hugging that quad into the stomach, and then exhale, press out. And then as you press out, you release some of that
I don't even-
slack.
Right. And I don't even have to release them out because it's just enough.
Right. And so,
Yeah. Please. There you go. Oh, taller.
taller. Nice and
Okay.
high. There you go. Beautiful. Lengthen some more. Go ahead. But don't rock back.
Okay.
There you go. Straighten out through the leg. Press the heel forward. Press the toes towards the face. Nice.
Oh yeah. I like that a lot better.
Yeah. And you look beautiful. Well, and I mean that in a sense that
Yeah.
it's a supported posture
Yeah.
that works for you,
Yeah.
right? Versus trying
Instead
to
of trying
force
to
yourself
Cramp
into
it all in. is
right.
what
Instead
it
of
always
forcing
felt
yourself into a posture that you think it's supposed to look like that, right?
like. Okay. So
And
just
then-
grab a strap at the beginning. And
Yeah,
then-
just go ahead and grab it, go back in there.
Because I was
and-
always so frustrated that I can do it on the ground, but that I can't,
Right.
get it all set up. Okay.
And so as you come here, right?
Yeah.
And then they say you can start to fold. You can bring the strap into one hand,
Pull
work your
yourself.
way down. Okay?
Yeah.
Without compromising the standing leg.
Right.
Because we're all, let's face it, we're trying to balance on that standing leg, and even I do it, that standing leg starts to lose its strength, and the knees bending because we're
Yeah.
focused more on the lifted leg. So when you come here, then you can stabilize, hug the core in, and then walk it down.
Can you give me some guidance on, as I'm standing, my hips probably should be level, right?
Yes.
And I'm trying to be straight into the leg versus, I don't know, bent knee or something like.
And so when we come to the preparatory posture, right? Because I do that too, like hiking this hip up.
Mhm.
So sometimes when you bring your bouncing posture, they're gripping the mat with their toes, right? But it's really the when I say four corners, right behind the big toe, little toe, medial, lateral sides of the heel. And so when you feel all four press down, then you can lift up the right toes. And now stable legs.
I always struggle on those like one-legged bouncing posture.
And you're not the only.
Okay,
We all do.
Now I keep thinking of all my questions. I'm loving this. Okay.
Malasana.
Malasana.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I go down.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now. Okay. But I'm not up. I'm like tilted forward. Is that okay to do this low, or do I need to put a block and go
So-
up higher?
In my mind sight, Malasana, what we teachers tend to see is this.
Yeah, and that's what I do, which I know I don't think is right.
So you can always put a block. And in my mind, garland pose should be nice and tall.
Right, like up. Yes.
Up. So that the shoulders are stacking over the hips. Right? And
Right,
so,
otherwise I'm up here to do that. I don't. Yeah.
and the elbows are pressing into the inner thigh. Right? So notice that sometimes, again, we just need to train the body to move in that direction. So a lot of times people have tight inner thighs,
Yeah.
and that's what's hunkering them, right? So you can always start to build that direction by sitting up. Just sit up nice and tall.
So work on sitting tall first rather than low.
Correct. So if you can feel in the pelvis,
The hips, right? Like this is where I can't.
right? So if you want to, so there's almost like just a titch of a posterior tilt of the pelvis. You can almost feel it. So rather than rolling forward,
Oh.
tilt it slightly back, and it's almost, so if you can picture the skeleton, right? You know, like they use in an anatomy class, right? It looks like that. So kind of picture it a little like that.
Okay.
In a seated posture, right? Especially this one. Now, depending on your legs and the length of your internal thighs, if you sit up nice and tall, you know, feel if you need to start first with the feet a little forward to achieve that,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And then as you keep coming back to your mat, heel toe it back.
So I just need to watch TV like this at night. Just sit like this on my butt.
And Greethan, if your issue, quote unquote,
Yeah.
because we all,
Right.
you know, like
Yeah.
issue or focus today is achieving that, and it's the internal thighs. And so here I am, I'm coming to class, I'm coming to my mat, and I really want to open up that part.
Yeah.
So if you have your blocks, I would grab 4 and do a reclined butterfly just to bask in the heat, because let's face it, it's hot when you come in.
Yeah.
So 1 down, 1 up, next level.
And then under my legs right here, put them.
Yep. And then put blocks underneath the knees, right? And when you do, so if you want to come all the way down to your mat, you can start up nice and high, because if you're like, this here, the inguinal right here, as well as these, and you start here, and you just kind of let it open. It's like, oh, okay, now I can bring it here, and you breathe again. And now maybe I just need to bring it here, and just let it
Open on its own without forcing it, because it's always so pinchy for me. Like,
yes,
right in there.
yes. And even if you need to start here, right?
Okay.
And then you just kind of walk it out a little bit, and walk it out a little
Yeah.
bit to open up.
Yeah.
But, and then, right, if your garland pose or malasana can be just working in that direction of opening up into the, because that's what it's meant to do, is just open up the adductors.
Right, and I knew that I was like, because my hips just
Right,
relaxed. I knew I was not.
Right, because people are like this, it's
Yeah,
already
that's
intense,
me. I know
right?
that's not. Yeah.
For me, this isn't really intense because I have good external rotation. in
Right.
my,
Yeah.
You know, and even if you worked one leg like a supine tree,
Okay.
you know, really, really early in the practice and you just want to do a supine tree versus a reclined butterfly, you know, you can utilize that, bring
Yeah.
your block and support that right knee just to let things kind of start to open before you get to class.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I
you
like
do the
that.
other side.
So the goal in that pose is like the stretch here. Is that what
Well,
you're
it's activation here,
saying? Okay.
Yeah.
but a stretch into the internal thighs,
Okay.
the inside
So
of the
I
thigh.
just drop down, so I take all that out and I
Right,
go like this.
right.
Mine
Because
taking all that out.
it's
So I
intense.
need to, yeah. And maybe my legs actually need to be further.
Yeah. So I would just say, instead of trying to do that,
Yeah, just do that to start.
stack your blocks and
Okay.
sit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you feel things start to lengthen and open, you just inch the toes back, and then you start to take out a block or sit up on
Wait. On the other way.
medium side, and then bring your elbows on top so that you can be aware of opening up. Again, you may revert back up to here if you go down, come back down, and then eventually,
I'll get there where I can just do it straight.
right, or
Okay.
give yourself some space, right? I always find that it's just pretty much sitting up nice and tall and opening. And you know,
Yeah.
there's a gentle assistance of the hands on the inside to open.
Yeah. Then I can see that I'm
Yep.
doing it straight.
Nice strong
Okay.
spine, right? Instead of,
Yeah.
yeah. Beautiful. What else? Believe it or not, we only have 15 more minutes.
No, we have not been in class. It's been a long time. I'm loving this.
In dragonfly twist,
Okay.
your hips,
Yes.
they're not twisting, right? Are they, where am I supposed to be there?
So the answer to that is yes. They're not supposed to be twisting. So
It's
So
like belly
we're
up twist.
so when they say, okay, and maybe you've noticed me saying this, right, Eric? So we come to high crescent lunge, right? High crescent, and then they say close prayer twist, and everybody goes here, right? So what I like to cue it is breathe in, exhale, bring the hands at heart center, right? And without moving, breathe in again. And so there's this preparation, and then exhale, you twist. So it's almost like as you're breathing out the air,
Yeah.
again, there's the press of the navel in, and you come this way. So a lot of people really just want to twist it over, right?
Yeah.
They're really, you know, and they want to lift up the foot and all that, and that's great. But yes, the pelvis should be nice and neutral, and as you come in, it is opening up, right? So a lot of times with the awareness of the pelvis, and if you notice it in your lower back, if you even want to bring a block to the inside of the right foot. But yes, it is twisting, but it's square. Does that make sense? So in hindsight, you'll feel it open up and move this way, right? Close prayer twist.
I always have to think about my abs, I feel like.
Yes,
If Helena yelled at me about one thing, it was that.
it's always abs. Yeah.
Because I like suck in before I twist.
Yes, always.
Yeah.
So you breathe in,
Yeah.
and as you breathe out, then you make that space. So yes, it's hard to say, Eric, like, should the pelvis be twisting? It should, because that's natural, right?
Like here versus here, right? Like
Yes,
it's-
right.
It's this, not
Correct. Yes. Right, you're not, right.
okay. Because I guess that's a cue I picked up recently that I was like, oh, I think I've been doing this wrong. And then I was like, did I cue that right, or did I make that up in my mind? But it is, because like I think a lot of people are,
They're over
over
rotating.
Oh,
here,
like that.
Yeah, they're over rotating.
This
and
should be
not
forward.
here.
My
Yeah.
head leg should be forward.
Yeah, so if you keep it,
Right? Yeah, yeah.
if you keep it when you come down and then twist, like this.
Yeah.
So everybody, I wouldn't say everybody, but there's this preconceived idea that the lower you are, the better, which and you may have heard me say it too, is stay lifted, right? So as an example, in your high crescent lunge, there's people who do this, right? They're warrior two, and then it's all in the low back. So it's really a press away, and the other lock is in the pelvic floor, which is called mula bandha, right? So as if you're trying to stop women,
Yeah.
you're trying to stop the
No, I think about that, like lifting up.
right, and unawareness of the back leg. So a lot of times there's the back, because we're always facing forward, looking at the front leg. There's not a back leg engagement. So you really press into the ball of the foot, and the heel is over the ball of the foot. A lot of times I see this, right? Right. So spiraling this left inner thigh up, really pressing away from the floor. Contract the pelvic floor, and then here we are.
Who moved to Ann Arbor? Who was our teacher in North Ann Arbor?
Ellie. No.
Yeah, no.
Elise.
Elise. She always she's the one who makes me think about my abs and my hula bandhas and all of that. She was so good at cueing all of that when we did.
Nice.
That's really the powerful, because people will tell you more than
And then you put your body in something different.
Right.
Right. The hot sequence is always the same thing.
Right.
You're always doing the same thing.
I love a powerful.
Yeah.
What are the things that you see in class where you're like, the most often things that you're like, not that, but this?
Asana.
But just like general
Yeah.
things that are like,
Generally speaking, as simple as it is, down dogs and up dogs, and chaturangas.
okay, let's talk.
Ooh, I
about
worked hard on those. Let's talk about
Yeah.
those.
5 minutes, let's do
Because
it.
it's not the pull through, it's the push up, right?
So first of all,
That was one thing I always worked on too.
down dog, right? So
Yeah.
what? So people want their heels to touch the mat, right?
Oh.
Not
And-
happen.
Right.
For me, this-
For me either, right? We already went through this hamstring issue, right? So, you know, ideally, when you come into a down dog, right? When you shift into a high plank, there is little to no adjustment.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people are like this because they want their heels down,
Oh.
and then when they shift forward,
Do I do that?
their shoulders are way past their wrists, right?
No, I'm right.
Yeah. And so what else I see is people like this, okay? So they're kind of dipping into their pelvis because they feel like that'll keep them up more. I don't know if that makes sense to you. But when they do their chaturanga, so in a high plank, again, it's a lift, and you really
Yeah.
knit the ribs in, knit the belly in, right? And it's a protraction into the upper back, and it's a lift. And I almost really like this really super high plank versus the military style straight,
Okay.
you know, from
Because
crown
you're
to hips.
protracting.
Right, so there's a protraction. And so when you inhale, you shift slightly forward, your exhale halfway. A lot of times what I see are people doing this,
Yeah.
right?
like the
And it's
scoop
so much
is-
harder.
That's what Elise used to yell at me for.
Right. Well, it's so much
Not yet.
harder. If you notice,
Guided me through.
so first of all, when you come into a chaturanga, and of course you can't hold this very long, right? Like this is hard. So, and it's not usually in the hug class, but when I teach a power flow or vinyasa, I actually have you guys hold chaturanga a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this takes a lot of strength,
Yeah.
and then there's awareness in the core, and then up. So,
And then you just flip the toes and push up, right?
Right,
Versus
push-
going down.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're lengthening through the second toe. So a lot of times, people's ankles are inverting. I don't know if I can
can't
come
go
around and
either.
see, but the length through the second toe, and then you roll over the toes
Yeah.
and press it back. And then so the shoulders are externally rotating in down dog. Forearms are internally rotating. Fingers nice and wide. If you need some space in the shoulders, which is unusual for me, but you can point the index forward, but I generally have the
Oh, no,
middle finger forward.
Which one do you usually do for?
Middle.
Yeah.
And then there's almost an anterior tilt to the pelvis so that the chest presses towards the thighs. Yeah. Lengthen into the side bodies, hug the outer hips up and in, hug the navel in.
So it's okay to be up high like this then, am I playing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And then when you shift down, yep, Beautiful. Yes. Beautiful. Lovely.
Look how lovely we are.
And the up dog extension is really also based on your lumbar flexibility, right? So I have a very flexible lumbar, so you know my seal is very upright.
Right.
But that's just because I have a flexible lumbar. Not everybody has that.
Right.
So you know your up dog may be this much, and that's okay.
But you're basically drawing your heart forward.
Right. Clavicles, collarbones.
Energetically.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Eric. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know the extension of the cervical spine is really a student preference. I usually keep a neutral cervical spine, right? Versus
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It just hurts on my neck.
Yeah.
I know I think it could create some injury sometimes with the hyperextension of the neck, but some people like that, and that's really up to them. But for me, it's like neutral, like how the body was meant to be, almost, you know, without overextending or over adjusting. Yeah.
Okay. Alright.
What else?
Okay, camel real quick.
Okay.
I know that's not a quick one. Well, actually, no, I have a different one. It's that I know I can work through camel. I know the slow motion to that. The hero pose.
Yes.
Can I just, some people's bodies not do it?
Yes.
I feel like I'm uber flexible in other ways, and I
Yes.
feel so dumb when I get to this one because it's like I can't even do this.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Meanwhile, Eric and my son just lay on the floor in my living room.
Well,
and do it.
for a while, I could do it, and then I stopped being able to do it, and then someone gave me a cue about like the tilt of your hips, and then that like changed it for me again.
Okay. I can see what they mean by that. So options.
Yeah.
First of all, sitting on a block.
Okay.
So the heels are out and you can sit on a block. Almost like a Virasana or a Vrajasana,
Okay.
like this. And then if you wanted to lean back, you could,
Okay.
right, to open
So
up.
just to
into
stretch
plank.
it out, I can just do this.
Yes,
Okay.
right? One-legged. So if you're feeling like that, with like two bent knees is very,
Yeah.
very intense. You can
Yeah.
lengthen one, and this is called half saddle, right? And if you feel like it's really intense still on the left knee, bring that heel out just a little bit. And this can be where you stay, really. If you wanted to recline more, you can.
Okay.
And you can
Well,
come
that
all
at
the way
least
down.
feels like it's accessible when it's the other way, both legs. I don't feel like I can even move.
Right. And
Yeah,
so
I feel like I can do this.
And so the top of your foot, and you still may need to sit on a block. So come up,
Oh, okay.
straight up. Yep. Go ahead and sit. Yep. And then this foot, you should be on the top of that.
Oh, like this.
There you go. There
Okay.
you go. Yeah. And then you can recline onto the forearms. And you may want to try it without the block now that you know that you're supposed to be on the
My foot.
top of the foot, rather than like on the medial side. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, I can do one leg.
And then do you try to do both sides, or just do one side and then next class do the other side?
I would try and do both
I
sides
would
on
switch.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, like, if you feel
I
like,
am doing my own thing anyway.
if you feel like you need, just one side, like one of your quads, or, you know, so, and I'll show you this now that we're on this gesture. So also, this posture, reclined hero,
Yeah.
right, opens up into the deep pelvic muscles, which is the psoas, the iliacus, right, deep into the pelvis.
Yeah.
So that's when you recline and you're able to open up. Now, so yes, half saddle for fixed fern,
Yeah.
if you wanted to do that. Bridge. So when we come into bridge,
Yeah.
right? After that, if you wanted to bring a block underneath the sacrum, right? So the lumbar, the sacrum, the flat triangular bone, and just rest on that. Okay? And then you want to open up into the deep pelvic muscles, you can lengthen one leg.
Oh.
Okay? And you'll feel it. You'll feel it open. And then if some people feel like that's okay, they want more intensity, they'll lengthen the other leg. And it may crunch on the low back, so you may need to adjust.
Oh,
and
I
bring-
like that.
Bring that block down to a lower setting and really reach the toes to the front, and you can really feel
Like
it.
my
open.
legs together, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
You
yeah.
Parallel the
Oh.
legs.
So can I do this instead of hero's pose? Am I starting to
I would
think
do,
about
I would
both?
do,
Do this during the bridge.
I would do, so
Okay.
I would do half saddle for your reclined hero,
Yeah.
because it's really supposed to get the quads.
Okay.
And then when you want to really get more into the pelvic muscles,
Yeah.
you can do that. And then revert back to bridge.
Yeah.
Or wheel.
Yeah.
Right? We say bridge or wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Final question.
Okay, yeah. So it's not one.
Greenland's like, I'm gonna take that.
I'm gonna take everything image. Okay, so when we do frog,
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, I get it.
So
Teach me
it's like
something about frog.
this, and it's okay that I can't be flat on the ground because this is
Yes,
like uber
absolutely.
intense.
Yes.
It's better to do this than to lay forward.
Oh yes,
Right? Okay.
absolutely.
That was my only question.
And I would
Because I
use-
feel like I'm so high up, but it's so.
but that's what,
intense.
but that's where you are. And,
Okay.
And so again, blocks, right?
Yeah.
So, and understand right now it's really, really intense.
Right,
Because
'cause
we're
I'm
not
not
super
stretched out,
high.
yeah.
But with frog, right? It's again 90, 90, 90. So from the side body
Okay.
to the hip, to the knee, to the ankle,
Okay.
to the toes, right? So you'll see some people have their heels hugged in, and it doesn't have as much benefit. So
Okay.
again, internal thigh, if you wanted to work on internal thigh, but because that's
We're seeing a pattern here with what isn't working.
so even if this is at a higher setting,
Oh.
okay, or lower setting, right? So just keeping the chest up, keeping this, if you feel like you want the head down a little bit more, and just,
Okay.
settle into it.
Okay.
But yeah, avoiding this, because that's what people tend to do, is bring the heels closer, because
Yeah.
it is
Because
intense.
I keep thinking about the 90, like the feet, because we used to do it up against the wall.
Right. Right, you can put your, and that's why people do that,
Yeah.
so they keep their feet apart. But instead of, if you feel like you can stay high up on the forearms, but you can use your blocks and just kind of just
Yeah.
get, heavy.
Oh, I never thought about putting one under my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I like that a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like any of this, but
Right.
that makes it better than having to pull my weight up.
Yes. Eric, last question? You got a last question?
No, that was my last one. I went through the sequence in my head. So I came up
Like
with
what
one.
parts? Yeah.
Yeah, do I get stuck on?
I
Yeah.
don't think I've got any more questions right now. I don't think, I'd like to do this again after, like, do the hot class and then come straight from the class too.
Yeah.
With my questions all like, oh yeah, this.
Yeah. Well, I'll be here next week and the week after, and then then
Okay.
this class goes away.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
so I'm gonna have to do the week after. 'cause I'm going on vacation. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll put it on my calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
We
Well,
just were
good.
like, well, this class works. Let's go.
Well, then you get to, you still practice.
Yeah.
But you practice other things and,
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes that's what I need is a reset, especially since I'm in winter regular foot,
Yeah.
well, great, you guys. Well, thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
And if I'm ever in class with you, just correct me. I love that. Because I'm like a teacher too, I want someone to actually teach me,
Right.
and learn how to do things better.
Well, and in the hot class, it's so fast
Yeah.
that we don't really have time to do that.
Mm-mm.
And
Yeah.
even in a power flow too,
Yeah.
the way I teach a power flow is in 3 segments,
Yeah.
and it's repetitive. So it's
Right.
flow 1, okay, reset, then we go flow 1, flow 2,
Yeah.
reset, then flow 1, flow 2, and flow 3, or 4, if it's
Yeah.
a 75-minute class, flow 4 is at the peak of the practice.
Yeah.
So it's a getting the body ready to move into Shirshasana A,
Mhm.
supported headstand, or flying splits,
Yeah.
or wheel, or whatever it is, prepping the body for that.
Yeah.
And so it's more regressive to progressive.
Yeah. Yeah, this was good. Thank you for offering.
But, yeah. Well, thank you so much, you guys.